I'm just gonna start the recording there, and I'll be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about as we just analyze some of this gameplay.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Alright, so just noting that he's just chucking his abilities in there just to make sure they're doing things because he's not going to be using them anytime soon. So he wants to just get that value out there doing something.
I'm playing outside.
Okay.
Inside. Hanzo, Genji.
Yep. Really good positioning, probably you want to be taking on this map if you're ever here, right? Noting that it checks off most of your Ana positioning boxes that you're looking to check off, right? You have high ground, you have cover, you have
You can
line of
see your
sight over
team.
everything. Yeah, you can see your team. You can put enemy team out of your line. Maybe that one's like not as much, but you do have the option to put enemy team out of your line of sight very easily with the cover. And then on top of all of that, you do have maybe not like the most fantastic, you don't have like off angles here per se, but you do have probably better than average angles for landing abilities, right? Because you can land them pretty much no matter what direction they end up going here. So I'd say this one is probably going to be where you want to start off positioning on this map most of the time.
Yeah, dude,
I'm just looking for the aggressive nade there. So I guess just one thing as well might be helpful here. I don't think, yeah. So I didn't get you notes for the last one, did I? Oh, we did have notes for the last one. Okay, so looking at the last session, we did the notes just so that we can kind of compare the specific things that you needed to work on, right? So last time we did notes for you, the main point was positioning, like where are you standing, positioning, different things we talked about was, can you, all the things basically we just discussed, right? Like going through all those different check boxes, using cover, taking high grounds, you having good visibility, right? Can you see your team? Can you land abilities or and whatnot, right? So talking about all that stuff. So we'll keep an eye on positioning. Then number 2 is ability usage, like how are you using your abilities, making sure we're getting good placement on them. Awareness slash survivability, right, is another. It was number 3, like making sure we're staying alive, paying attention to our surroundings. 4 being mechanics, and then 5 being ultimate usage. So that was what we were looking to work on, just to get that, up on the forefront of our minds while we're looking through this, so we can compare how is he positioning, right? So that we can think about our positioning in comparison.
Okay.
Did you hear that smack sound? Okay. Smack that out on the floor. Smack that. Give me some more.
Yep, chucking in abilities once again, just getting some ult charge. Oh.
No skip on it. Fog's on the.
Oh, yep, chucking an ability in there because he sees Hog. Right, just notice how he's using it very frequently, getting it out there. Right, he doesn't have, because they're on more of a dive composition, he's not going to have perfect instances to land, those 4-man nades. So he's just getting them in there, getting value. Though I would imagine, like, once he does, because they're on a dive, so if he starts getting contested, I imagine he's going to hold on to them a bit more. Right, noting that he is holding on to sleep, right? He's not firing off sleep into them. He's holding on to it. That way he can specifically care for the Genji and the ball if they were to come and contest him. All right, now he's chucking in there because he knows he's, again, so like notice how he's kind of rotating those abilities, right? So he's holding on to sleep so that if he starts to get contested, he has sleep to contest people. But then now right as he's coming up on the nade again, he's sleeping. So now even if somebody comes and gets on top of him, he has his nade to help him out, right? So he's going to be getting his nade within the next 3 seconds, which means Genji dives him, he has nade to help out, right? So he's always keeping like one ability on hand so we can use it, right? So that's just rotating his abilities, always having an ability available, right?
So smart.
Right, checking in the nade because he just sees at the moment I'm not under any pressure at the moment. I don't have any reason to hold on to these. I have Moya right next to me who can heal me anyways, right? So he knows I can use my abilities because I right now am probably not going to be contested anytime soon. I might have contested. Why does he drop here? Um, I might say there that he doesn't necessarily need to drop. Like I don't think that dropping like cuz I might also comment like if I see him make mistakes as well cuz he's not perfect in within his gameplay. I don't think that dropping really gives him any advantages here and he wasn't pressured off of that high ground per se. So being up on that high ground would probably give him increased visibility and survivability and then he always has the option to drop afterwards if he starts getting contested.
You can stay on that. Fog anti-point.
Yep,
No
again
fake,
just
no fake.
chucking that in there. Like mainly just notice how most of his antis have been on Hog, right? Keep just stopping him from being
Kill
able to
the point, kill
heal.
the point.
I'm surprised he didn't go for the sleep on ball.
I was thinking that.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh no.
But again, that's possible that he just ended up missing that. So that probably would have been a good situation to sleep the ball. Because, what else is he going to use it on there?
5 head.
Alright, so now he's looking to reposition back up to that top left, but notice that he's a little bit hesitant. He's not immediately going for it because he sees that his teammates are fighting on this right side here, so he's hesitating on the right side, waiting to see, okay, they're coming back to me, right? Now I can rotate, right? Just making sure he's rotating in between fights, getting back to the same exact starting position because this is going to be his best positioning possible.
I don't have a tank. I don't think I'm gonna get it. You should go.
Oh,
Fog anti.
chucking in the nade, big ante. Let's analyze that for a second. So
Get it.
just noting when he throws it in there that he is, let's see, so there's nothing in the way to block it, right? He sees that there's no shields. Actually, it's a little blurry. I can't actually see. Is that a Sigma there? No, they're on ball, aren't they? Right, so
Yeah.
yeah, ball's on the bottom. So they don't have any shields to block it. He's free. He doesn't have to worry about shields. He doesn't have to worry about tanking abilities, right? Because they are on Roadhog, right? So they don't have anything to block it there. On top of that, there's no teammates in front of him, right? So again, just going through all the different things that can block your abilities. There's no walls in front of him. This is as free of an ante as you can get, right? He chucks it in there. He gets it to land basically straight in the middle of their whole team, right? Free value, antes their whole team. Tries to sleep the Bastion. Brig blocks it, so that's maybe something he could have watched for. Is like if he sees Brig standing on top of Bastion, might have wanted to wait for shield to break or something of that sort, right? Why is he drop?
He's under pressure and they're down men.
Under
Because of
pressure.
Bastion.
Under
Because they're
pressure from who?
shooting Bastion
Mm-hmm.
and his two of his teammates got antied. On top of that, he was one player down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think actually 2 players down as well, right? So they're pretty much lose. This is a lost fight at this point. Bastion was pressuring him off, right? So he's backing off now just because he can't really be in.
Give them to
Yeah, I don't think the quality goes any higher.
Come back, Kagi. Back, back.
It's a little blurry at that distance.
It's okay.
Come, turn off.
Maybe a little bit unnecessary of a nade. Like I don't think that this nade actually did anything. Like you can see their health bars. Oh, maybe he's trying
I
to catch
think
the enemy Genji with that, but
I thought
yeah.
he was going for the ball.
I didn't see a ball there. Maybe.
Well, ball swinging on the
Uh,
wall.
yeah. But yeah, but balls wasn't anywhere close. So I think
Oh.
that was just he just like misused it there. That's the big thing I'd say.
Fog
So I
guys,
just
let's
the reason why I also point out when he's making misplays is because I want us to also be aware of the fact that like while we're analyzing his gameplay that he's not perfect and he's not going to be making every decision correctly. And if we're analyzing this with the perspective that he is making every correct decision, then we might end up copying bad mistakes, right? So that I would say in that scenario was a bad nade, and it probably was a good. It wouldn't have didn't really do anything for him at all. Just kind of wasted the ability. So therefore, like I don't want you to be looking at that and seeing, oh, I should just nade people whenever I want to heal them, right? Like if they're down, 20 HP, that kind of idea. So I'm just also pointing out when he is making mistakes, but then
Keep them
also when he's
inside.
making good decisions.
Fog is still guide, so they can go. Genji
Okay.
anti.
That nade was specifically targeted towards the Genji, but also gives the Sigma the heal boost once it comes out.
Ball
Okay.
half.
Noting. Oh, he did have sleep on cooldown. What do you sleep on there? Oh, good sleep on the hog. And tossing, just constant abilities so he knows he's not under pressure with that. Right, so we're going to look at where does he position here. Right now he's just making sure he can see his team. All crazy flicks.
Volante. Reloading. Wanna go? Wait. One low.
Why do you think he goes for the anti instead of the sleep there on the ball?
Let me see. Play.
One low.
Because the ball is one,
Yep, so
and,
he...
and to
Good.
confirm the kill.
Yep. So, when ball's low HP, sleep means that yeah, our team can kill him, but it also means that like he could get healed up through it, right? The anti keeps him at that 1 HP and also does some extra damage that can end up securing it. Right, goes for the nano blade, noting that he's paying attention to the fact that they're blading. He was pressing, I believe he's pressing tab in between that last fight. Might have, yep, he's flashing tab, right? He's checking it. He's analyzing who am I going for. He sees we have Nano Blade. Okay, now he's paying attention, extra close attention to our Genji, right? Let's see. I think he pre-aims this as well when Genji is going in for Blade, right? Uh, so he's already aiming like in the general direction of his Genji, so he's ready for it. Okay, and then he just does an easy nano as soon as it happens, right? Right, sees there's nothing else to do, so he just goes for that extra damage, right? Noting that, like, again, this is the efficiency, right? It's actions per minute. He's constantly doing something. There's very little downtime, right? He is very rarely lacking in value because he's constantly doing something. When nobody needs healing, he's shooting. When he's not using abilities, he's healing, right? He's constantly getting value and rotating between what he's doing. Whereas, if you look at your own gameplay, we might have those random breaks and pauses. We might have those times where like we don't use abilities. We might have those times where we don't shoot it, like when we're just over healing, right, or something of that sort. Right? Notice how we've seen very little over healing. We've seen very little downtime where he like just kind of sits around not doing very much. Right? He's constantly doing something. Like even in this time in between fights, he's pressing tab. He's analyzing what's happening and what's happening in kill feed or not kill feed, but in tab, right? Who has ultimates on our team, on the enemy team, in our team? Did anybody swap characters, right, etc. So he's constantly up to something.
Let's try
Now,
like quick.
here, let's see, what's he doing with his positioning?
We're going right
His
side.
team, he's analyzing and he's seeing that his team is holding close here. So he wants to take positioning
Let's go
to
right.
assist with holding close. Alternatively, he could have been behind cart, but maybe that wouldn't have given him very good visibility. He wouldn't have a high ground. He wouldn't have good nade angles to work from. So this is for the purpose of spawn holding. This is going to be superior positioning, right, in his attempt. All right. Their mistake was that he was kind of sneaking, hiding too far away from the edge when nobody was kind of suspecting him or contesting him at all, right? So he was just kind of being a little too sneaky, and then that meant that he was slow and delayed to react to the Sigma dying, right? So if he was just a little bit closer to the edge, he might have been able to react sooner there. But notice he's paying attention to a Sigma, he's being aware of the fact that a Sigma is low. Attempts to throw in the nade, ends up actually missing it. Yeah, fight kind of falls apart here. Are you familiar with that tech yet at all?
Which one?
Meleeing. Why do you know why melee's here? Up against the Genji. Watching Genji dashes in. Do you know why melee's there?
No.
No. So he melees because melee shares a very similar animation style to that of sleep. So what's the Genji gonna try to do if he tries to sleep the Genji?
Reflect.
Deflect, right? So what happens if he melees the Genji and then the Genji's tricked into thinking it's asleep?
Oh, he tried to reflect preemptively.
Yeah, so the Genji tries to sleep tries to deflect the sleep when the sleep doesn't exist, right? So now you basically bait out the deflect, and then now you have a free sleep. So this is a strategy done as well up against diva players, right? So when the diva flies in with defense matrix on your face, right? Um, diva's going to, or diva flies in at you, right? And you melee. This makes the diva think you're sleeping. She uses DM, and then as soon as DM runs out or she drops it, you can sleep her right afterwards. So it baits out the ability and puts it on a cooldown, right, which is very helpful in a lot of situations. Not something you're gonna do all the time. Probably not going to work like super well if like maybe if you have like a Genji blading you, right? It might not work as well. He's not going to deflect as often. Still might deflect there. It still might be useful, but that's just a handy tech to keep in the back of your mind. It actually did not work here because the Genji didn't fall for it. The Genji deflected after he meleeed, right? So he deflected after the sleep happened, but that was the intent behind it. Yep. So
We'll use rally for that defense. Peaceful.
So notice that that's his first death so far, right?
Mhm.
Looking again, survivability, staying alive longer means more value, right? So far, he's been alive for the majority of the game so far. Did he just press tab? Yep. So far the game has lasted 4 minutes, right? 4 minutes and 25 seconds. So one death in 4 minutes and 25 seconds is very good rate to be having because that means that whereas sometimes like I'll be coaching people who die over once a minute, right? Which is just
Mm.
terrible to have, right? So with you, I don't think it was as bad. We had survivability as like a medium priority for you to work on, right? It was kind of in the middle of everything else. So overall, it's more so like maybe in this situation we could have maybe died like 2 or 3 times in the time he died once, right?
Yeah,
Not
I
as
agree.
bad. Yeah, not as bad as some of the other guys, but we want to look to increase our survivability, stay alive, and we see him staying alive more often because he has good positioning, because he's analyzing and being aware of his surroundings, and he's paying attention to what's going on around him. Right when Genji's coming up to contest him, he's trying to duel him and run away if possible. Right, and then besides that, he's not. He's keeping a good eye on his ability usage. Right, as we discussed before, he is rotating them. There's not a lot of ways you can misuse your abilities on Ana, but he does end up using those well anyways, rotating them, making sure he constantly has something available. Even in that last fight when he was up against Genji, noticed that he chucked in nade, but he still held on to sleep for when somebody would come to contest him, because he knew as soon as I reveal my location, Ball or Genji are going to try to come for me, and I need to have an ability, right? So he's holding on to it for them, right? Team comp, I think we might have talked about that at some point, but team comp dictates playstyle. When you're up
Yep.
against like divey characters, flanky characters, you might want to hold on to an ability for them to come to you. Besides that, yeah, he also just isn't getting super over aggressive, right? Notice, I'd say maybe like that last fight is maybe that death you could say that was maybe a little bit over aggressive because it's just very aggressive positioning. But
Mhm.
at the same time, you haven't seen him like sprinting into the enemy team very much, right? He's not
Right.
never been really over aggressive. So just
Ah,
analyzing
peaceful.
why it's working, why he's doing well.
Meanwhile, payload. Vroom, 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 vroom.
Yep. So like, all these different categories that we have been discussing, right? He is just he has mastered all of these different separate categories to such an extreme extent that together combined that makes a, top number 1, player in ranked ladder because he's mastered all these separate things, gotten super consistent at them, gotten very efficient at everything, right? Knows all the little texts, knows all the little things, right? So this is just goes to show that basically what we have been talking about is the path to getting here. It's just that
Mhm.
we're not very far along that path as of yet.
That makes sense.
Right, so right now he's looking to push forward soon here, I would imagine. Oh, actually, never mind. The cart's right around the corner. I didn't see where the cart was.
Reloading, hog the hook.
Right. So positioning wise, we're taking a look. We're seeing the fact that we're positioning a little further back. Like here, he probably. Why wouldn't he want to be on the high ground above right now?
Um, One, because they have Blade. Two, they have two dive heroes. That they can like Ball and Genji unless they switched off.
What would that
Also,
have been? How would that have been different from the first point high ground?
I don't know, to be honest.
No? Okay. So, first point high ground, what happens if Ball and Genji dive in?
Your team is easier for you to pill. I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, so if Genji, so in the first point, right, when he was up on high ground, right, both I guess both the times, right, if Genji, or especially the first time around, right, when
Hmm.
he's on that back top left high ground, right, in that scenario, he gets dove and he can drop fairly easily to his teammates, right, and he's dropping into safety, or his teammates are up there with him. Now in this situation, nobody's up there with him. If he drops, where is he dropping to from the high ground?
Into the enemy team.
Pretty much straight out. Like there's no cover anywhere. He's dropping straight out into the open, basically into the middle of the war zone on the point. Not real a ton of team support there, so it's a lot more dangerous. Is point number one. Point number two would be right now we see like his team, and we have Tracer on the right, Genji on the left, Sigma on top of us. I think, let's see, who else do we have on top of us? We have Zenyatta on top of us, right? Monkey is on the right side, right? So as of the moment, we also have two people who are underneath that ledge. So that means that at the very least, like, we wouldn't be able to see a third of our team,
Right.
right? So we'd have a little bit more limited visibility. Whereas notice from this perspective, we can see the Genji and the Tracer, maybe like a little bit worse than the high ground, but we also have much more visibility on the Genji on the Zenyatta and the Sigma, right?
Right.
Okay, so he attempts to go for the sleep, he ends up missing it.
Genji's one anti.
Okay, backing up because he sees the fight's lost.
Oh, please don't chase me.
Oh,
Luck.
yeah. So he just missed the sleep there, right? It was the main thing, but he did really good backing up as soon as possible. The main thing in that situation was just that he missed the sleep, and then that led to the death. So that'd be an example of maybe dying because of a misuse of abilities. Not that he necessarily misused it, but he just missed it, right?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, checking a nade down there. Huh. Yeah, I was about to say probably chucking an ability down.
I'm ready. Ready when you are. No sleep.
Okay, looking for the blade. Notice how they're communicating it. Not always going to work, especially the lower down the ranks you go, but do your best to communicate. Don't have the expectation that your teammates will be on the same page as you and that they will listen or that they will be in chat. Don't come into it with that expectation, because if you do, you will be disappointed because, half of the Genjis in ranked will not be properly communicating with you, right? So if you
Right.
come into it having the expectation, you will be very much let down. That will tilt you, that'll get you upset. Instead, come into it just, knowing that it's a tool. Communication is a tool for helping you better get something off, right? So communicate, notice how they communicated ahead of time, right? Just listen to the audio a little bit. I'll turn it up a little bit for you here.
Ready.
Nanoboost almost ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Ready when you are. No sleep.
Right, so he presses the nano boost is almost ready. He says it in chat, I'm ready, right?
I'm ready
And then pops it on him, right? So he does, oh, I didn't mean to skip back there. I'm just turning down the volume.
for it. I'm ready.
So notice how you don't always necessarily need to let the person who you're comboing with be the initiator. It's helpful, but you can nudge them along if you see a really good situation for a ultimate, right? Or let's say you're going to be incapacitated soon. So like, let's say we are going for a nano blade here, and then all of a sudden Genji's on top of us. Well, now we don't want to have to delay our nano blade for until Genji and Ball are off of us. So we might want to nano the Genji and then turn to fight the Genji, right?
Right.
If that makes sense, right? So that's a situation where you can nano before they blade. You can also nano before blade if you see a really good opportunity and you're like, here you go, Genji, go for it, right?
Right.
I'm ready for it.
Just chuck a nade in, trying to do stuff with it. Again, notice like he hasn't been getting like an insane amount of value out of Nade, but that's particularly because of the fact that they're on a dive E comp. They're playing very or I'd say their comp is more like hybridy. They're running Hog, Ball, Genji. Yeah, they're kind of all over the place doing a
Different
bunch of
things.
different things, right? So
Yeah.
he's not gonna be getting those big, massive group nades as he would in other comps.
How do you miss that?
Mm, can't
You know the
see.
song?
It's possible that it fired while he was dragging. I don't think we can. Actually can't. I don't see where it actually went there. It's possible he over adjusted and flicked too far to the right, but I didn't see where the shot actually hit.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's see, where does he position? Right, he's giving himself visibility on his team. Is he just gonna stand on cart? Well, looks like at the moment he's just standing on cart. So he's identifying. I don't think that anywhere I could go would be better positioning than cart. I might say that like, depending on what they're running McCree, Ana. That
So
that might
nice.
be pretty
Good
true
design,
here.
good
Like, there's
design.
not gonna be a ton you
Let's
could
go the nade
do
now.
from there. I
Pause.
might say that, like, honestly, it's not too terrible where he's standing. Could stand top left, be on that high ground up there, get good nade angles, but then also it might be hard to back up if your team backs up sooner than you. You could be on the high ground, like right behind us, not the one that kind of is the little stairway up, right? The grassy area, right? That could be a place to be right now as well. But I don't think there's anything like super superior at the moment. Yeah. And good heal nade because he sees Hog is in danger and low. Why didn't he try to sleep the Nano Blade?
Wait, hold on. A lot is happening right now. I'm
Okay.
trying to keep up mentally. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all good. You want me to rewind a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're right there. Right there.
I should throw the nade now.
Yep.
Whoa.
Notice he's just chucking it in there because he knows he's not going to be under contestation. He's just getting the value in. All right, so they go for Nano Blade. No, why do you think you didn't go for the sleep there?
Because he's not in danger immediately. Also there's a ball behind him, so he needs to save an ability
Hmm.
for to save himself.
Yeah, so multiple things that like I'm thinking there. So first off, he doesn't use sleep because of how far away Genji is, and I would probably say it would have been probably a pretty risky sleep. It would have a low chance of success because of the distance between them. So therefore, it probably would be better to hold on to it till he got closer, right? So that's the first thing I'm thinking. Secondly, I'm thinking the fact that it just wasn't necessary because he messed up his dash and Hog was whole hogging him away, right? So he ended up not needing to use it because ultimately it just wasn't necessary. Genji was nowhere near him, right? And he wasn't a threat
Right.
anymore.
I basically
Mhm.
you said it way better than I did.
Yeah, all good. Okay, chucking it in, gets heal on his hog, gets anti on their hog. Also, just by the way, we're halfway through the session, right? 30 minutes in. Just checking up. Any questions on anything? This all making sense? Anything?
This is a lot more like this is opening my eyes a lot more. Like I don't know why, but I feel like this is just like giving whole new perspective like on Anna and like coaching and this is like so educational and so helpful right now.
Well, I'm glad that's helpful, man. Just let me know if anything comes up where you're confused, right?
Okay.
Right. Also, just noting within the coaching, right, that I'm primarily, if you've noticed within what I'm talking about, I'm primarily focusing on his ability usage and positioning because those are the two things that we identified to
Struggled
be
with.
like the biggest problems within your own gameplay. So that's why I've been mostly focusing on those two things. Though I mean, we could, if we wanted to, put other focus into other things as well.
Oh no, this is
Mhm.
perfect how it is.
Mhm. How did their Genji? Oh, he never bladed. All right, right. Sorry, I had to. That confused me for a moment there. When he got nanoed, he never bladed. So I was thinking, how did Genji charge his ultimate within like 20 seconds? But he had never actually used it. So that's actually why in this situation, right? ML7 is aware of that. He was paying attention more than I was, right? He was paying
Right.
attention to the fact that Genji never used Blade. So he's thinking Genji's probably going to use Blade, right? So
Mhm.
therefore, think about his positioning now in regards to that, right? How
Right.
maybe like I was thinking maybe like, huh, why is he like so far back in the room? Like we have a trance going and there's stuff happening out there. Like why is he sitting so far back? Like why is he not
Mhm.
maybe it would have been better for him to be like up on that doorway right here, right? Like where he can actually heal things and see things. But then Genji comes in with he sees Genji on the left, Genji's coming with the blade and he backs off into his spawn area, right? Notice how I think right at that
Right.
doorway, Genji can no longer get past, right? So he backs off into this area where Genji just can't reach them at all. And then he sees Genji runs away, so he comes back out immediately because he's no longer under any threat. Nades because Reinhardt is like 1 HP, and then he also gets the
Does,
hog with it
does
as
he
well.
does he
Good.
nano? I would have nanoed right there.
Mm.
Oh nope.
Yeah, so he goes for
He's
the
ready.
hog. Why does he
He's
go for
ready
the
for it.
hog? Um, I think you might be right there. I think that was maybe a mistake on his part.
Or was
So
Hog alting?
I don't think Hog had ult because he used it against the Genji. So
Okay.
I think he just did a misplay there.
He's
Okay.
Yeah, I can't. I was trying to see tab there, but I think he flashed it too fast. I think this was a misplay because he nanos Hog when Hog doesn't have whole Hog, and Reinhardt probably would have gotten more value out of having that
ready.
available. So probably would say that going for the Reinhardt would be much superior nano in that case. I would say that's another example of it being a mistake.
He's ready for
Right.
it. He's
Because notice
ready.
how Hog's not
He's
doing a ton
unstoppable.
with it at the moment. I mean, there's also the possibility that he could just be memeing because he's duoed with him. I believe is that Kabaji? Is Prime sub Kabaji? Do you have
I
any clue?
don't. I
Um,
don't.
yeah, so he's duoed with Prime Sub, so therefore he might also give him preferred treatment with the Nano Boost, which I'd probably recommend. Usually isn't the best strat to be going for, just because sometimes they're not on good characters or good situations to be nanoing them. So I'd still, even if you're duoed with somebody, still go for the best target, unless you're like in quick play or something, right?
Yeah. Like me nanoing you.
Yeah, yeah.
Point, point.
I mean, I was always the best target, man. All right. Let's look back at this. Like, why does he die
Ready
here?
for
Right.
it.
So you can think back here. Like, why does
He's
he die?
ready.
Let's see if you can identify why he
He's
dies.
unstoppable. He's not ready. Point, point, point.
Positioning error.
What was wrong with the positioning?
He went out in the open when he didn't need to, and also he didn't have any cooldowns when he went out in the open. He just used his sleep and his nade on
Yeah.
cooldown.
So he firstly noting that like he backed off out of that doorway, out of that little room, when the only one in there, it was like a 3v1 against the ball, right? And he has spawn right there, right? So he's running away when he doesn't need to run away. And then secondly, probably noting that once he gets whole hogged into like this side this wall here, there's
Hmm.
cover, like if you see right in front of us there's cover and he actually leaves that cover and walks
He's not
further to the
ready.
left, right? So he's using that cover, and then he like walks out of
Point,
it,
point.
and then that also is misuse of positioning as well, right? So he left cover twice. Big problem here was that was just the positioning misusage, right? And then that gets him killed.
Big slam, big slam,
Obviously,
big
that's not
slam,
going to be
big
very
slam.
good if you're in the last fight and you're dying.
Big slam.
So
Right. Right. So he's coming on spawn here. He swaps characters because he's thinking that
so
like Ana might not get the most value here. Why? Let's just analyze this a little bit, right? Because he's thinking a little bit here. There's a lot. Actually, I'd say there's a lot of brain power coming in here that you don't might not know. Someone might not notice here on the surface. So firstly, I'm noting that he presses tab and he hovers over Lucio. Why does he hover over Lucio?
Big slam.
stall.
Stall, right?
Big slam,
So
big
why
slam,
does
big slam.
he ends up actually swapping off of Lucio here in a moment,
Big
right?
slam.
It's because he swaps over and picks Moira instead. Um, so he swaps off Lucio, picks Moira, uses Moira to close the distance while still in spawn, right? So he uses Moira as a mobility
Hmm.
option here, right? And then he swaps the Baptiste, right? So he swaps up Baptiste. Why does he go Baptiste over Lucio?
Because Baptiste can keep up his well, he uses lamp to keep up the critical HP. I'm not sure if he gets out in time. It actually saves it, but
Do you think he needs to get out in time?
no, I don't know to be honest.
Yeah. So in this situation, does he need to touch point and contest?
No,
Okay, why not?
because there's two people there.
Or three people
Even
there,
though,
right?
yeah,
So
yep,
in this situation, he doesn't necessarily need to go for ultra supersonic speed to get to point as fast as possible because he already has teammates on point. Instead, he's identifying the highest value here does not come from him contesting point, but him getting out there and keeping alive the people on point with an immortality field, right? Which is going to keep them alive, very high value ability, as well as very high healing output, which Lucio would not have, right? So he's throughout this, like 2 second period of time, or not 2 seconds, but within this 10 second period of time, right? He's identifying. Initially, he's thinking, I need to get out fast, but then he identifies, oh, I have teammates who are still alive, swaps to Moira, I've actually never seen that. That's actually interesting to me. I've actually never seen that being used, but I might try to implement that in my gameplay. But he swaps to Moira, uses Fade, goes up to the spawn, like to the very front of the spawn there, swaps over to Baptiste, right, and then comes out,
Front of payload. Lamp front
throws
of
out
payload.
throws out Lamp, right, gets some the survivability value, right, actually keeps Tracer alive there. She would have died without that. Maybe not a reason to contest. I I'd say that was probably maybe a little bit of a poor positioning because he ran out to cart when he had Tracer there. And then that results in that death right there. So probably misuse of position. I keep saying misuse of positioning. What am I saying? Probably poor positioning there, right?
right,
Cover sitting on the right side probably would have been better. Would get him out of like the Widow line of sight, keep him safer, closer to spawn. So I just think that was maybe unnecessary, and then that led to him dying there. Right. So notice now in this situation, he comes out. Um, I don't know if do you have any no, because swapping off and swapping back to Baptiste probably would
I've seen him
yeah,
doing it before on Watch for
yeah,
Gibraltar.
uh
He gets immortality back
yeah.
faster.
So I'm I'm right here. I'm wondering in my head, like, why does he come out on Moira over Baptiste? He maybe thinks that yeah. I'd say trying to
I
think.
think so. Of course we would have to
Mhm.
ask him, but this is my guess.
Mhm.
Um, I'm thinking high mobility, stall, and lots of heals for Moira.
Yeah, I think that maybe he identified that like in this situation, basically you have like the three different categories, right? You have the Lucio with the super speed, you have
Mhm.
Baptiste with the super sustain, and then you have Moira in the middle with a little bit of speed, a little bit of sustain, right?
Mhm.
I think he maybe identified this to be a situation where he didn't need the high sustain as much and he needed a little bit more speed, so he swapped to Moira. But honestly, I think Baptiste would have probably worked just as well here coming out because Reinhardt's still alive there when he comes out.
Right.
Oh, I don't know. The Reiner just charged off the map.
Yes! Yes!
So Fade's on the point. Oh, that was actually really good. They
Yes!
stalled. They stalled till 0, which is awesome because
Yes!
now that means that if they cap with time, or I think over if they cap with over a minute, then they can. It's either win or draw, right? Rather than them getting time too. If they had any time, if they had 1 second, then that would mean that it would be either team would you'd have an attack and a defense, right, rather than just a defense. So that's I don't know if you were aware of that fact, but that's just a little tidbit. Little tidbit.
Oh
Yeah.
nope, I was not.
Yep. So if at all possible, always attempt to get it to 0 seconds, right? At the like if you know you're gonna lose, your attempt is to stall out to 0 seconds because then, like I said, right, they don't have that option to attack and win the game. It's just an attack or draw, right? If you come in and I think if you get below a minute worth of time, then that means that like on this attack, if they got below a minute, then I think that would automatically give the enemy team time. So they'd have to cap with over a minute for that to go into effect.
I did not know that.
Going
Yeah,
top.
just chucking in the nade there, right? He knew they're all top right. Just
Mhm.
firing it up, right? Just like, he's
I'm.
putting it in very often, very frequently. He's like, I would say in this situation, in this composition, high quality is not nearly as big of a deal because you're not going to get very high quality nades in the current compositions being run. So quantity is really the biggest factor in the situation, with quality still being, existing. Go ahead, you're going to say something?
How do you? Is there different play styles? Of course, with dive tanks, it's like throw like anti what they're diving. Reinhardt is like keep them up and like a little more brawly. But is there a way how you should play Ana with double shield? Because I sometimes find myself not knowing how to play with double shield tanks.
Yeah, so Ana that's Ana's weakest composition is with a spam composition, right? Because she just works better with dive and brawl. She's still a very flexible character, so she still works okay in a spam comp, but just maybe not as good as maybe like Baptiste, for example. But
Mhm.
how you would swap? I'd say that you play. Are you what in this situation, right? You're talking
Mhm.
about how you use your just to get more specifics here, because everything in the game is situational. You're
Yeah.
talking about nade specifically here, right?
Yeah. Nades and
And are
abilities.
you saying that your team composition is a spam comp or their team composition is a
Our,
spam comp?
like what he
Okay.
has right in front of him.
Um, I don't think that typically your ability usage doesn't drastically change between what your team is running. I would say there's a bigger change between what their team is running with specifically for Ana's nade usage, right? I wouldn't
Right.
say so. For example, I would say I'd say that spam and brawl are very similar in how you're going to be using it. Maybe I would say that you're gonna need self heal nade, like our team nade heal nades less
Mhm.
often because your team's less in there taking a bunch of damage like a Reinhardt would be, right? So
Mhm.
that is one difference I would say. Besides that, most of it I would probably say is going to be the same. Whereas I would say the difference maker, if your team is like running more of a spread out composition, because Brawl and Spam usually play very packed close to each other. But if you're
Mhm.
running like a dive or like a hybrid comp where everybody's all running around the map, then in those
Mhm.
situations you might be more heavily contested, right? You don't have as much team protection, right? So
Mhm.
you're if somebody gets on top of you, you need to be able to fend for yourself because your team's so spread out. So I would say that when your team is on that divey or hybridy comp, that
Mhm.
or even let's say you're playing a really split up spam comp,
Mhm.
then in that situation you would probably hold on to abilities as if we talked about like the enemy team being on dive characters, right? It'd be similar where if your team's on a dive, then you might want to hold on to your abilities a little bit more for contention. But if they have absolutely nothing to contest you, then you would throw them out there still. So, like I said, ultimately, I'd probably say the biggest differentiating factor is what the enemy team is running. Because if they're on a dive, then you're going to be holding onto your abilities a lot more, or rotating them, or yada yada, making sure you have them available. If they're on a
Mhm.
brawler or spam, you might be just chucking them in there all the time, right? If they have flanky characters, you might hold on to them a little bit more often, depending on your contention level, right? So does that all make sense? That kind of answer the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, that actually helps me a lot.
All right. Right. Sees that there's absolutely, he's just chucking them in there because they've nothing to stop it, right? No shields, no abilities, no nothing. He has like nothing to worry about with his abilities, right? As long as
Right.
he's just mechanically landing them, then that means that they're hitting, right? So there he just sleeps the hog because it's an easy sleep, right? Hog's just standing there, right? He gets
Mhm.
stunned, he gets rocked, and then just nades them to keep him dead, and
I'm
then
not
boom,
getting
that's a
that
free
dive
pick.
next. You're not sleeping. How many things don't I do for my team?
Okay, self-heal nade because he saw he was low and in danger. Holding on to sleep, right? So noting that he still has that available for Ball and Genji. Genji comes on him. Notice how he goes for the melee again, but Genji lands all the headshots.
Oh, that right click.
Yep. So they're in that situation, probably going. I would say in this situation here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Biggest thing I'd say is the problem is that he doesn't go for the nade, right? With nade, if he nades a wall or he nades the ground, Genji can't deflect that, right? That's not. If he tried to chuck it at Genji, then he could, but that's not what you want to do in this situation. So if he throws it on the stairs, like right below him, or at his feet,
Mm-hmm.
or on the left wall, or on the right wall, or whatever, he hits both Genji and him. Genji is already low HP, so that puts Genji at probably like a little over a third, maybe closer to half, right? So
Right.
he puts Genji down lower. It gets him purple, heals him up from 90, right? And then he now has extended duration to land the sleep, right? He's now alive longer. So I'd probably say the biggest problem here is that he doesn't go for the nade, maybe because he doesn't realize he has it, or just because he didn't think to use it, right? Whatever. I'd say that was a mistake here. Besides that, I think everything else was fine, right? He just Genji mechanically landed the abilities and he didn't
Oh,
use
that
the
right click.
nade.
Believe
So
that he had.
Block.
Okay.
Genji's still behind you. Genji's
Oh,
gonna get some.
man, I
Gotta
don't
keep
know.
going
I
this
just
push.
love this coaching. I just like it. I just like analyze. Like I feel like I'm starting to incorporate this type of stuff in like thinking
hmm
processes.
yep.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Wait, hold on. I blinked. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
blinked.
yeah, yeah. What do I think is significant about that? What we just saw.
That was so. So first the ball gets rocked, then pulled into a sleep, and so it's kind of like the Sigma Orisa combo. Orisa is really known, really her best utility. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is her pull ability, and
hmm
so doing that it can confirm a kill on the ball. On
hmm
top of that, is he's not in any danger. On top of that, he has no reason to
Yeah. So I'd say the biggest thing here is that he just combos with the pull, right? So
yeah.
he's watching for the pull. He knows we're on Orisa again. Team composition dictates play style. When you're on different team comps, you play differently. So he can't do this at all with a Reinhardt. But when he's on, when our teammates on Orisa, now we're watching for the pulls. And here Sigma's doing the exact same thing. You actually see that Sigma combos with the pull as well. And
Mhm.
then he gets rocked. He gets slept immediately after because they're all firing into the pole. Makes it very easy. All he has to do is just watch the pole, sleep on top of the pole, right?
Right.
And then he lands that, even though it's a really far away sleep, he ends up getting it just because of how easy that is. Um,
Why did he go towards the Genji?
why do you think he runs towards the Genji?
That is everything. That's what you told me not to do.
Is that what I told you not to do?
Not run. No, no. But
Mhm,
besides, my abilities, but running towards the Genji.
mhm.
Why did he
Do you think
health
that
back?
do you think that in the situation he would be able to effectively run away from Genji? Genji's another dash, right?
Right.
And so in this situation, right, Genji he dashes up, right? Dashes up, blades. So right now Genji has another dash. He has higher mobility because he's blading, right?
Mhm.
So in this situation, do you think he would be able to just run away backwards and escape?
No.
Okay. So what benefits would he get if he runs forwards?
Well, there's a health pack, and he can heal himself through
Hmm.
the blade if he nades himself on the health pack.
Yeah, I would say firstly, this makes it easier to nade the Genji, when he's running towards the Genji. I would say the biggest thing he's doing here is he's juking the Genji out, right? I don't know if you heard that term. I think
Yeah.
is that I don't remember if that's a common
Like
gaming
dodge.
term. Yeah,
Like more like
dodging, right? Yeah,
dodge.
he's dodging him, right? So in this situation, Genji's expecting him to back up, but when you walk forwards, if Genji dashes here, dash alone is not going to kill him, and he's just going to end up dashing straight through, right? Or he just ends up missing a slice of the blade because he's expecting the Ana to be in front of him, and now Ana's underneath him or to the
Yeah.
side of him, right? So this is, I would essentially say, right now he's juking the Genji out. This is not going to be applicable in all times that Genji ever blades. I'm not saying anytime you see a Genji blade, you should sprint at them, but he's identifying here, I don't have sleep. I am too close, Genji can reach me. Whereas in some other times, the Genji's been blading, he's been across the map from him, right? If he was, like much further back, well, now maybe he might not make that same play, right? He also sees that he can make it inside that room, which gives him corners to play off of, right? That's cover he can use. Genji tries to slash at him, he's around the corner, slash doesn't connect, right? So health pack, nade, juking him out, corners to work with, and backing up wouldn't give him any of that, right? In fact, they'd probably just make it easy for the Genji to kill him, right? So
Yeah.
does that all make sense for situationally why he would run forwards instead of backwards?
Yeah.
And that actually works, right? Notice how so him or sorry, I guess it doesn't work super well, but he stays alive long enough here, right? He stays alive longer than if he just gets immediately killed there. So he does end up dying, but notice it took a lot longer, and that sometimes is all ultimately sometimes that's all you can do is just make it hard for them to kill you. Sometimes you're going to die as Ana because you get dove by 4 people or you're nanoblading, you don't have anything. Sometimes you're just gonna die, and making that death last as long as possible can be really important because then that means that 4 seconds Genji takes to kill you is 4 seconds where he's not blading the rest of your team, right?
Yeah. Yeah, isn't his
So
blade like 7 seconds?
It's 6 seconds.
Oh, my bad.
you're gonna dead. No sleep on out. 5v5.
So then, therefore, the only kill he gets there is him, right?
Right.
So honestly, in that situation, I would say that's probably a good example of a situation where honestly wasn't a ton he could have done. I would say maybe at most the he could have maybe held on to sleep if he knew Blade was coming, but honestly, I think it was a good opportunity to on ball, and he didn't know Genji was gonna go in immediately after he used sleep. Right? He probably wasn't expecting Blade to come in. I wasn't expecting Blade to be coming in. So honestly, I don't think he did a lot of big misplays there. So just remember that not every single death is going to be a problem. Not every death is going to have something you can fix, but most of them will. The higher up in ranks, there's going to be less and less you can fix, right? I'd say because the people get much better at forcing you to make mistakes. They make you die, even if they kind of make it so you don't really have the options, right? So at your current rank, maybe it's 20% of deaths. There's nothing you can really do. At
Mm-hmm.
like a top 500 level might be more so maybe 40% of deaths are there's not really much you could do, right? He just gets upped because people get better at that. We have 4 minutes left here, so why don't we just summarize some of the main points and then do quick review along with that and then wrap up. So we saw positioning. We focused mainly on positioning and ability usage, right?
Right.
And also just kind of thought processes and what is he thinking when and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Ability usage. We saw how he used his abilities with his team compositions, right? How he adapted it to how his team is playing, or not playing. What his team is playing and what the enemy team is playing. So he adapted his ability usage. He paid attention to what characters were running. He just used them off cooldown because of that, right? He used them all the time because he knew they had nothing to contest his abilities. He rotated his abilities because he knew they were on a dive and he was going to get, or they were on dive. They had flanky characters, right? They had divey characters, which meant that he was going to get contested. So he rotated the abilities, right? And usually they got pretty good value, right? He missed a couple sleeps, missed it, a couple nades didn't do fantastically, but he has 8 sleeps, which isn't too terrible in however many minutes he has at what time? Oh, I couldn't see. Right, so he has a decent amount of sleeps, decent amount of nades happening. Right, so if this is a 10-minute game with, did that include between the round as well? I don't remember. But in any case, whatever, you get the point. Moving on. um, Positioning, noting that he took high grounds, that he rotated back to the same positioning between fights, that he checked off all the boxes we've discussed. He analyzed where is my in between fights, where is my team standing, and where's the fight probably gonna happen, right? Because especially I'd say a really good example of that is when he went and took that really aggressive spawn hold positioning, was he
Mm-hmm.
identified my team's trying to hold their spawn. So if we're holding their spawn, where should I be standing, right?
Right.
The back on cart probably could have been a little safer, but it would have lacked in a lot of other opportunities that the high ground gave him, right? So paying attention to that. Melee tech to bait out abilities, right? Making people think it's asleep. We talked about what else? Communicating for nano boost, and we talked about talk about a lot of different like here and there things, right? It's very, I think we talked about a lot of situational and a lot of odds and ends thing within his gameplay of, because we analyzed just pretty much everything, pretty much.
Yeah.
um so I think those were largely the main points. Do you have any questions about anything we've gone over at all? That all makes
No,
sense?
no. This was actually a lot more helpful because like I kind of feel bad sometimes watching my own gameplay, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, oof, you know. But
Mhm.
like this one actually makes me feel a lot better
Mhm.
instead, and then like it helps you look. Okay, I should be looking for it to do this
Mhm.
because this is how ML7 does it, you know.
Mhm. Yep, 100%. So I'm gonna